Welcome back to Living the Reclaimed Life. I'm your host, Denisha, and I'm so glad you're here. If you've ever felt the sting of a broken relationship or wondered if healing and reconnection are even possible, today's episode is for you. You're going to meet Dale, who has spent over 20 years walking with others through story work. He'll explain what story work is and why engaging your story in community can be one of the most powerful steps toward healing. Dale will be sharing about rhythms of repair, how intimacy with others is actually deepened through moments of rupture, and the hard but hopeful work of repair. This is a conversation about honesty, vulnerability, and opening ourselves up to hope, even in the midst of tension. Before we jump in, I want to remind you about the Reclaimed Story app. Inside, you'll find a safe community of women, daily encouragement, scripture, and resources designed to help you walk your own journey of healing. It's free to download on the Apple App Store and Google Play. Now, let's lean in as Dale invites us into the healing journey of rhythms of repair. Welcome to Living the Reclaimed Life podcast. I'm Denisha. We're glad you're here for conversations that revive hope, inspire healing, and encourage you to live a vibrant life with Christ. So grab a cup of coffee as we chat with today's guest. Our guest today has been walking alongside others in story work for over 20 years. With trainings from the Allender Institute in Seattle and Open Hearts Ministry in Michigan, he is passionate about creating safe spaces where people can bring their heartache and experience God's healing in community. As part of the Narrow Gate team in Tucson, he considers it a privilege to witness the power of connection and redemption in people's stories. I am so excited to welcome to the podcast, Dale Hodgeson. Dale, I'm so glad you're with us today.
Thank you for inviting me, Denisha. Really appreciate it.
So you've been doing, and we're going to get into what story work is too, because a lot of our listeners may be like, what's story work? You've been doing story work for over 20 years now. So take us back to the beginning. What first drew you into this type of work?
Misery in a marriage, with my wife, Cindy, and we knew something was off. It's just things weren't right with us. And we had an opportunity to get into a couples group, actually out of Phoenix. And we met every other weekend. There's like 6 couples, and we did Allender type work and story work of just going back into your history and your past, and beginning to discover what structures were built in your life so you could survive your upbringing, and then how that comes into your adult life. And so my wife Cindy and I went into this group for people who had done some significant work before that, and they invited us down a path in a safe place where we could kind of fall apart and go to war in the midst of this safe place, to begin to learn and develop a rhythm of repair within our own relationship.
So that took going back to figure out the patterns and things, like you said, systems you had in place. What did that look like for you?
It was really difficult for me. I was very disconnected, disassociated, had everything shoved down in a small pipe with a big lid thing on top of it. So it didn't make any sense at me at all at first, but it just took time at a safe place. It took lots of grace and lots of mercy. It took people that were willing to say difficult things to me, and people to show me and guide me to places that I can't see on my own. We were unable to see some of these places that the harm is and how we treat ourselves. And so it took a lot of patience and kind care and love to walk with me slowly to whatever pace I was moving at, to help me connect to reality.
I know you had mentioned that during that space, you really connected with someone in a really cool way. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would just describe that. I think I spent most of my life, fragmented. I've got fragmented stuff going on in my childhood story. So I'm just completely disconnected. So to feel someone in my heart, like, first you have to be able to feel. And so this process took some time to thaw me out, or, coax me off behind the wall. We talk about having a mask, hiding behind walls. So we have these structures that we use that are usually detrimental to us in order to stay safe. So as time went on, as an adult, that's the first time I remember actually connecting to a human being, because when we enter these stories of trauma, we get in a very vulnerable state, and we have certain biochemicals that are coming in and out of our bodies. And when you're in community, it's those same biochemicals that we use in trauma to stay safe, fight, flight, and freeze. But in a safe place where we're engaging it instead of running from it, those same biochemicals connect you as a group. And so that's that special connection, or that piece of connection to another human being, I don't think, was totally foreign to me, because connecting to myself was totally foreign to me.
Can we pause in that a little bit?
Yeah.
I know for years I lived, as you described it, as disconnected. What does that mean, dissociated, disconnected from ourselves? Tell us a little bit more about that. I think that's something that we don't talk about a whole lot.
I mean, it's so important in the story work is right where we're going, is our 0 to 18 story, where we build and formulate these structures to navigate through life. And if you think about it, like, these structures are built when our brain has not fully developed. So a lot of our translation of life, how we experience life, is gone through a brain that has no logic and no reasoning. And so I think a lot of the like triggers and things that take place are feelings. So we're really dealing with feelings, and we don't like to feel. So we disassociate, we disconnect from that feeling, whether it be powerlessness, whether it be shame, whether it be betrayal, abandonment, whatever that feeling is, we'll do anything to not feel that. And so many times we turn on ourselves in hatred and in contempt so that we don't feel the shame of our wounds. So you develop these structures and patterns and rhythms of surviving your life that require you to be numb, to be really busy. I mean, there's just so many ways that we use to not feel. And so that's, even being regulated. I mean, I didn't start regulating till, in the last 10 years, even in doing a bunch of group work and not really thinking about regulating, co-regulating, re-regulating. All of those things are a disruption to disassociation. So even my breath, in just a few minutes, I can bring myself into the present and re-regulate with my body, even if I jump back out of it in 5 seconds later. But I find those little places to get back to regulation. So that's what I'm talking about, is deregulation. Disassociation is an escape from this greater harm that my body carries in trauma remembered responses.
I think you explained that really well. But I wonder if that numbness, that dissociation from our reality of what our bodies and our hearts are feeling, if that leads a lot also to us putting up a mask so we don't have to be vulnerable too.
Yeah. And I mean, all of it is on this layer of shame. So as a child growing up, I mean, shame is a huge part of our childhood story and what we've done with that. And the next layer is contempt. And out of the shame covered by contempt comes our style of relating, or how we engage the world.
Explain what you mean by contempt.
So most human beings don't stay in shame very long. And literally within seconds, you feel this weight of shame hit you. And it could be in 1,000 different ways: something said, something done. It's usually a visual piece as well to that, especially in relationships. And you feel it, and boom, you feel this shame, and you go to contempt of, I hate you, or I hate me, or why did I do that? Why did I think it'd ever be good? I mean, kind of back to what your mask was. Why would I tell you how today's going when you're going to dump me tomorrow? So I'll save you the trouble and dump myself now. So there's a lot of belittling and making less of you, but we usually use both. We usually use contempt towards other people and towards ourselves, but sometimes we're better at one or the other. But if the shame's high enough, we'll find either one of them, whatever will kill that initial shock of shame. And so you build that layer on layer on layer, because as a kid, if it's not being addressed, it stays in your body. You build a structure, and as an adult, you still feel that out of your body, that shame, and you still have this rhythm of disrepair. We'll talk this morning about a rhythm of repair, but we generally learn a rhythm of disrepair, which causes dis-ease or disease, because trapped trauma in our bodies causes all kinds of health issues, mental issues. And so part of this process is being able to name, go into that in a safe place, and through anger and through grief to have some of that trauma stress come out in community, not in isolation, which trauma isolates.
Boy, doesn't it? That's so
Yes.
true. Why is it so important? And I know you've done a ton of work in community, so you have an expertise in this area, I would say. Why is it so important for us, Dale, to engage in a community in this type of work versus doing it on our own? It feels a lot safer to do it on our own than it does in community.
And I think one of the there's several really, really good reasons to do community, but we were created for community. And the reason that the trauma stress, it's not actually the trauma usually that causes the most damage. It's unaddressed trauma that leaves the stress in your body. It's called post-traumatic stress disorder. And so when you keep that stress in your body, it causes, so that isolation piece is huge. So we're talking about shame. So when you're in a community of people and you've spent your whole life in a life of judgment and self-condemnation, and you go into these stories of shame and harm in a community where there is no judgment. Like they're sitting alongside you with blessing and not condemnation. And they're your witness as you connect to this young part of you in a story. And that's a huge healing piece. It's validation. It's having a face. It's having a witness. It's the safety the group brings. And there are things in our story and in our being that we can't see on our own because we self-justify. And our vision of what has transpired in life is through our grid and through our lens. And that's all we have. And a big part of that is done through most of nonverbal and very little verbal and immature brain. And then we have adults sitting around us that hear, smell, taste, because they can feel things that we can't. And so having the group around you creates this trust, and inside the trust becomes intimacy. So there's vulnerability there. There's all kinds of things that transpire in a group when you are focused in on traumatic stories. And I think, the other element that we use is male and female. And so, and yeah, it's that adds this other element of how God created us, male and female, and to be in community. And I mean, these are just my points of view. It's like he didn't design us to be separate in separate places. And the trauma, if there's sexual abuse present, then there's the trauma with male and female. It's so healing to have both estrogen and testosterone in the same room. And and to be aware of your biochemical makeups and what's going on biochemically, having that present. I mean, you can't replicate that. And what women do to men in the realm of kindness and boldness is undoing. And what men can do for women in their brokenness, in their grief, but in their strength, can undo women. Like, it's so healing for a lot of women, it's so healing to be around a safe man.
Yeah.
And for a lot of men, it's really healing to be around a courageously brave woman who's kind, that speaks into their life. And it's just this little mixture of stuff that God created that is so healing and so counterintuitive, because we're doing the same thing that evil used to harm us. And by entering that with kindness, with grace and mercy, and with our team or group around us, it actually heals us. Yeah. So God created us to be harmed, but he also created pathways for us to heal.
How do you create that safe space? Because I could see, I'm cheering it on because I've experienced it, but somebody who is not, how do you create that safe space? There we go. I think I finally dialed it in there.
Well, the safety is created by the depth that I'm going to share my own heartache. And if I can be raw, I can be vulnerable, and I can be open, it at least sets a foundation for trust. Because part of this process, and in this, we're going to do this weekend thing coming up, and it's going to be several weekends. And at the end of it is when we're going to intentionally write a story and enter that story. So you've had basically, six times together to build trust. And then we're going to step into the story. So, I mean, one thing that we'll talk about is your yes will always be honored. If you say, yes, I'll do that, but your no, if you say no, that will be celebrated. So part of our process is about the power of choice, and you get to choose what's safe and what's not. You described a lot of discomfort, and this is a very disruptive process. And we purposely want you to be uncomfortable, because if you're not uncomfortable, you're not going to change. You're not going to move. I mean, all change is disruptive. This process is disruptive. Redemption is disruptive. And so it's the building of the trust at the front end, but each participant is the translator of trust. Each participant is going to decide themselves what they want to share and how they want to share it. And again, if we get to a place and it's no, your no will be celebrated. So we want people to have a voice. We want it to be a place we invite conflict. We invite people to tell the leader, hey, you just missed me, or you just stepped all over my feet, and so we can engage conflict, because we are into repair. We are not into perfection, since nobody's perfect. And this process, I think a thing that can often get lost is, and we talked about contempt, oftentimes we harm ourselves more than our abusers. And so our own self-hatred, our own contempt is a place that we will spend time talking about. And it's this process is about you repairing with you. This isn't about changing somebody else, fixing your circumstances in life. This is about treating you and the power that you have, and how you care for your trauma responses, for your trauma stress that's in your body, and how do you care for your hope. And that's what this whole process is really about, because nobody's going to come into this group that somewhere buried under, or maybe on the top of it, is wanting change. They want more out of life. And this is a process about more in the realm of relationship, and specifically in the realm of intimacy and love.
Yeah. Yeah. Three things. I had to actually write this down because that was so good. I want to pull out a couple of things that you just said. When you talk about repair, I think that's something that many of us did not experience growing up, right? That wasn't modeled for us. That we get in a family argument, most of the time it gets shoved under the rug, and the next day we just magically wake up smiling, right? And we're taught to do that. We're taught to not address those things. So when you say repair, it is a very honest engagement of whatever rupture in that relationship happened. Tell us a little bit about that. And then I have a couple other things I pulled out of what you just said, because that was so rich.
I mean, for me, a big part of my life and my conversation as we go through this kind of work is having a rhythm of repair. And that reflects the fact that a repair is not a one-time deal. And just because we have repair doesn't mean it's not going to pop back up again, because we're human beings. So I'm not shocked when we have to go into repair. I'm not actually, if I'm the offender, like, I'm not actually, delighted, because I still have shame responses and defensive, but I'm committed to it. And if you're committed to repair, then it brings out a whole realm of safety that I don't have to walk on eggshells. If I'm filling too much space, then that's how I control my world. I know you're going to step in and say, what are you doing? So there's this other tension that comes with this repair piece. So a rhythm of repair is instrumental. And I view it as a flawed human being with a perfect God. Like, my first rhythm of repair is with being God. And I love the prodigal story, because that's how I envision this rhythm of repair. And you said we didn't get it modeled as kids, and neither did I, but I don't know that anybody got it modeled as the prodigal son got it modeled, because in his deepest shame, the first thing that happens to him is he sees his father coming to him, and he kisses him on the neck. The father's actually bowing down to him. But what I love about that is this grace and mercy piece that I have struggled a lot with, and still am in the process of struggling with. That is, it's a sensual place on your body. Like, it does so many things to me. That's where you go with a little kid to tickle them. And so the first thing that happens in your deepest shame is you get this kiss from your father on the neck. And I love the sandals, and I put that into his as grounding. Like, he gives us our old shoes, gives us new shoes to ground us. He covers us with a robe in our nakedness of shame. He gives us a ring that shows that we belong. And then he brings community in to celebrate us. And so that's my view of my rhythm with God. And for me, it's also a place where I can be a real human being and tell God what I'm really thinking and feeling in all my rawness. I mean, lament is so important in this process as well. And God, in my opinion, welcomes my lament. And oftentimes these things end in a deep and meaningful place of awe instead of self-condemnation. So that the first rhythm is with God. The second rhythm is with me. If I've harmed myself more than my abuser, then I've got some work to do here. And how do I connect? And how do I go into this place? And how do I begin to bless myself instead of curse myself? And what stories do I need to tell to help move some of these things out? And, we won't get into, of vows and agreements and things of that nature, but there's all kinds of things that go on, in that realm, soul ties and things of that nature that happen. But that's what this rhythm is about for me, caring for me. So I can do that as an adult by re-regulating through breathing. I mean, I re-regulate every day multiple times, but I don't do that if I'm not aware.
Yeah.
And then my rhythm of repair with other people are that I think that some of the real difficult things of that is like there's two sides to every story.
That's true. How one person perceived it and how you
Yes.
perceived it. Yeah.
And I think if you think about, I'm just talking about, let's say me and Cindy, my wife. So we have a long history with each other. So, and we have lots of hurts and things. So we have a conflict and we're triggered. So now we're not in our adult brain. So now you got two kids going at it.
Yeah.
And to be able to re-regulate, to realize there's two sides to every story, and to realize that it's not exactly what I did or said, it's how I was experienced by that person. So I have to calm myself down. I have to be curious about the person's deal, and I have to be curious about my own judgment or defensiveness back towards that person. So that's how I view looking at these moments of repair. And then when there's a conflict between two people, I take only one person gets to lament at a time. And so you take your time. Hopefully you can stay grounded and regulated, but the person who's offended gets to share, and the other person doesn't say anything back, but listens, tries to connect. Even if you don't get it, even if you don't understand, you try to. And then maybe a week later, you might come back and share your side of that. Like, here's how I got to this place just when I said that. And it doesn't diminish this person's harm and hurt. And it will if you do it back to back.
Yeah.
And so those are the kind of things that I look at as this ongoing rhythm that happens that we want to engage so we don't have this debris field that packs up. And it's actually in this process of repair that intimacy's grown. And so we've had a rupture, we've come back together, and now we're connected, we're not disconnected. And so the rupture actually brings us to connection. So we're not afraid of rupture because we're imperfect people, and we're not trying to be perfect. We're trying to repair our fractures, our ruptures, and that's the rhythm. I mean, I believe love is built on a foundation of repaired rupture. And that didn't happen to me growing up. And that's why at 40 something years old, I still haven't connected to somebody because I'm still using the same systems I used when I was 7. And so to me, that's just so key in everything that we're doing, because this is that you have to return. So it takes action from me, but this is agency. This is power. I have to return. I have to reconnect, and then repair can take place. And I have power to do all of those things, and especially in the realm of the care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm not expecting Cindy, my wife, to fill this place that I harm myself, and I'm the only one that can do that. And that's the importance of this process and storytelling, and why community is so helpful, because you just don't get it. Like, it's a process of coming undone and being built back up, and that God and all those things and uses people, and it's a process.
It's so counterintuitive to how the world around us works. But I would rather learn how to have a rhythm of repair in my life, even if it's not reciprocated by people who are not into story work and doing this type of work. It just seems so counterintuitive to everything that we're seeing out there. So much even that we see in the body of Christ. We don't turn and have conversations often. We just make assumptions or judgments, and we turn from, we leave our church, we go find another church. That repairing of coming back together. as you're stating this, I'm like, this is my hope for all of humanity, that we can do this. I mean, that's a big hope, right?
Yes.
World peace. But
Yeah.
I think that's such a big part of being able to come back and connect with other people in a really human way versus I'm right, you're wrong, that's it. And you even mentioned something in what you said about it's not about my perception of what happened, it's how the other person experienced me.
Yeah.
Man, this world would be such a better place if we engaged in these types of rhythm of repair.
Yep. Yep. And I think that what's important to remember as well is, like, you can't invite somebody in a process that you've never been to, like a place you've not been to. So what's so important about doing ongoing story work is because there's redemption, there's reclaiming, there's taking back things that were trashed or stolen or robbed, that I can invite you to the place that I stopped doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So this rhythm of repair, it gets richer and richer and richer as you do your own story work and you learn how to have grace and mercy upon yourself as God offers to me. Then I can better extend that grace and mercy to someone else. Instead, I can't just jump from God to, God does this and just skip me and jumps over to you. So the awareness is such a, like, there's so much power in awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're not aware, like, what choices do you have? And again, being regulated, like, I'm not aware when I'm unregulated. Something else comes along or there's a dip in the day. Oh man, I'm so dysregulated. And so it's an awareness. So once I become aware, I can then begin to care for myself, re-regulate, and then make different choices than I did if I was just in this blasé moving along in life. So all of those things come into play. But yes, I think it's upside down, but then so is Jesus was upside down. I mean, the world's business model takes you upward, and we get more elite at the top, and you leave the people in the dirt. And Christ was a downward business model, and he had to remind his disciples to stay in the dirt. Even, the Last Supper, the last piece of that story is Christ telling them, you're not like the Pharisees, like the elite. You're not above everybody. You're supposed to be down like a child, the least of the least, and you're to serve upward. And that's how we look in this way we engage the group setting, is the leaders start with their own brokenness. Like, I've been doing this for 20 years and I'm a mess, and I'm in a rhythm of repair, and I have choice, and I'm not a victim. And if you're around me long enough, we'll be in some form of repair, because I'm going to offend you. I'm going to disappoint you. I will, and you'll disappoint me. And if we have this, there's a lot of safety in that. There's a lot of hope in that. And when you repair, there's just a special closeness that comes.
Yeah.
That, because we know that there's also a force that does not want us to repair.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. And you do this story work you do is in very small groups.
Yes.
And you have a couple of leaders in your ministry that help lead. So you may have 8 people come together, and I know we have a couple of podcast weekends coming up with your ministry, and we're full, you guys. We didn't even have a chance to advertise it. I think that as humans, I think we are so hungry for the real, because we've had the, push it aside, just allow our bodies to dysregulate, do what we need to do just to survive. We've been in survival for so long that I really feel like a lot of people are ready for the real and to dive into those stories. So we have 3 podcast weekends with Dale and his team coming up this fall, and they are already full. So we don't say that out of a tease. We say that out of, we're going to have more coming up. So stay tuned, and we'll introduce some more in the spring as well. So small groups, and I can imagine that's probably important for safety. What else should we know about story work, Dale? If this is completely new to us, what else should we know about this?
It's incredibly disruptive.
What does disruptive mean?
So if you are disconnected and disassociated, you're not connected to your story, you have your own rhythms. I will call it spinning. We spin. And then as you start making connections and see that you do have choices to do things different ways, in our relationships, a lot of people depend on us to be dysfunctional.
So good. Yeah.
And so when you decide, I'm not going to participate in the dysfunction, and I'm going to offer an off-ramp off the drama triangle, the victim, the persecutor, and the enabler. My off ramp is repair. So I'm not just going to stop. I'm going to stop for a reason, and I'm going to tell you what that reason is, because there's going to be a conflict with you and I. And I desire that we go through a repair process because I desire more intimacy. And you may not agree with that. And so things that just spun and popped up here and there, all of a sudden, when you change, I mean, in my mind, I think about sticking a stick through a bike spoke as it's going, all the spokes go and the wheel just falls off, and it can have that kind of effect depending on your situation and your relationships. But it's disruptive because you're going from disconnection to connection. You're going from cursing to blessing, and you're going to put some real value on your own heart and say, I won't do that. You'll have containment, you'll have some boundaries, and say, I'm not okay with this anymore. You're going to have a voice and an ear, and hopefully you'll be in this repair piece because you're going to screw it up too, even though you invite people in because you're still human. But that's why it's a rhythm, because we keep coming back. But it's that piece that no one's doing. You just mentioned nobody even does that. So when you pop up out of the grass and start wanting to do that and start talking about things that don't make sense to anybody, like contempt structures and shame and my relational style and blessing, not cursing, then, they want you to get back to where you were.
Yes. So what do you do in, say you have a family member and you begin to take on this posture of wanting to repair, wanting to reconnect, wanting to own your piece of it, and wanting to share honestly your experience, right? So if you have a family member, let's say, or a friendship, and you go and approach this, what if it is completely not reciprocated? How do you process that personally?
Well, hopefully you'll process that through grieving, not demanding. So we want our desires to stay alive. We do not want our desires to turn into demands. And so, here's hope, because I want more intimacy with you, but you won't participate with me.
And that's the grieving part.
And that's the grieving part. But that's the part that was dead before.
Right.
I didn't seek intimacy with you because I'm spinning, or I'm disconnected, I'm dull, I'm whatever you want to call it. But now that I'm connected, and now I say, hey, I love you, and I want to know you more, and here's something I want to talk about, and it's off limits. I mean, I still love you. And it changes our relationship because I need to keep my heart soft through grieving. And one of the other processes that is helpful in this story work is I learn how to grieve. And so if you can learn how to grieve, then you can process a lot of trauma, stress, and to keep hope alive. If you don't grieve, you will stop hoping. You will shut your heart down. So, those are all great questions, and they're all fluid, and they're all different because different family makeups. But the biggest thing is some people won't want to do anything with it, and some people become unsafe because of that. Some people will be like what you mentioned, where that's like my mom. Like, I wanted to connect in a deeper way with her, and it wasn't available to me. She wouldn't make it available. And she did so many awesome things in my life. Like, she touched my family, and she was a great woman, but she would not let you to her heart. And so I can hold her beauty, and I can grieve the loss that she never took her mask off. And I never got to connect to her from my young place. And we never got to talk about harm done to me because that was off limits. And simultaneously, she did some fantastic things in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, for my family and my kid. It's both.
Anything more about story work or repairing intimacy that comes from repair that you want to share, Dale? I love tapping into the wisdom that you have.
Yeah, I think if the two words I like people to remember is grace and mercy. And grace and mercy isn't about enabling or excusing. It's about judgment. So this work requires a lot of grace and mercy and courage.
Amen. Yeah. You mentioned earlier about hope. I want to end on that. What you talk about the tension of hope.
Yes.
And the cost of hope. Tell us a little bit about that. Why does this process bring so much hope?
For myself personally, hope was the main vein that evil came to rob, steal, and destroy with me, was through powerlessness. So hope was I tried to refuse. It kept popping out because I'm human, but I spent most of my life trying to kill hope because it's too dangerous. It's too much risk. And all of these things that we've been talking about that keep us shut down and separated, when we start entering those and we start repairing in our own lives, it opens the door for hope. Like, we are wired for love, to be known, to be seen, to be cared for, and also to offer that back. And as this starts happening with you in a group setting, it opens the door to hope. And so the tension of hope is back to the desire and demand, and back to the place that people don't have to I mean, like, you ruined all these people by going out in the valley and sitting with them. Now they don't want to do this, or, a blase conversation. You ruined their lives because
So
they.
much fun though. Is that the disruption? That's the disruption. That's part of it,
Yeah, and
right?
I'm joking by saying, like, and why is that? Why do they say that to you? Because they hope for more.
Mm.
I don't want this dull stuff. I want some meat on it because I want more. Like, I want more connection. And our enemy, through trauma and through other avenues, wants to keep us disconnected. And he wants us to be flatlined, a lukewarm Christian. He doesn't want people delving into the stuff that he's done to us and taking back ground. He doesn't want that. And so if you go into one of these groups, you'll see and feel the unseen realm in resistance, in things that go through your mind, and through the seemingly odd bad things happen before you get to go to one of these meetings. Or there's just all of this, I call it chatter. There's all this chatter that comes around when you are going back and taking back ground that evil has stolen. And that's what this process is about. And it's about hope. And to keep hope alive, you have to be able to grieve, because a lot of it's, I mean, like, hope is crazy because it sets you up for dashed hope. And that's what this tension is. So how do I keep that alive? How do I care for myself and my dashed hope? How do I care for myself and da 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 da? And so that's this rhythm I'm talking about, this a different rhythm of connection. Or you're either, this is a rhythm of connection, but we usually live our life in a rhythm of disconnection. And that's a disruption. So anytime you disrupt a disconnection, people don't always smile at you.
Boy, that's a great point. We definitely live in disconnection from ourselves, from other people, from that authentic, just realness that we were designed to live in.
Yeah. And go back to your story with the people that you had in the valley, where you don't connect in the same way on the mountaintop that you connect in the valley in somebody's hurt and harm. Because for what the biggest reason I think of, because at the mountaintop, there's no shame.
Yep.
It's all celebration.
Good.
In the valley, now we're getting into shame and heartache and hurt. And you are connecting there because of how your bodies respond to that. And then they taste that, and then they go, I don't want, the cheap meal over here. I want this. And that's exactly what you're talking about. That's the disruption.
Yeah, that's so true. And I love what you said about hope, though, that how hope plays into that and how hope feels dangerous. I wrote that in my journal 2 years back in big red ink. And I said, hope feels dangerous. And that's so true. But yet there's so much beauty in hope, even though it's a little dangerous. I can see that tension. I had never heard you explain that before. I really like that.
Yeah. We're talking about living in that tension.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't want it just for a little while. Like, just like we want repair going on, like we're okay with conflict, like,
Yeah.
because we're gonna repair it. We're gonna get closer because of conflict.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. Well, when you've had an argument or something with somebody and you've worked it through, not avoided or
Right.
turned from, but actually leaned towards one another and reconnected through that, those are some of the people that are the longest friends you've had, or, the people that you're closest to in your lives are the people that you've walked through that with.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Dale, I sure appreciate all of the work that you've personally done so courageously to prepare you to help other hearts do that same type of work. So we're going to talk in the next episode, we're going to talk about trauma being trapped in our body and how that comes in and what to do with that. But in the meantime, before the next episode, how can people find you and the work that you're doing in Tucson?
You could go to thetensionofhope.com.
Perfect.
And we have a little webpage, and it explains a little bit about what we do.
And can they reach out to you through that as well?
Yeah.
Okay. thetensionofhope.com.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Dale, thank you so much for everything you shared. We could have unpacked probably one sentence at a time and we could spend all day here. I love this type of conversation. So thank you again. And I look forward to the next one.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. I pray you found hope in today's conversation and maybe even feel a little less alone in your story. Stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram at Reclaimed Story. Want to learn more about living a reclaimed life and how you can be a part of our growing community of reclaimers? Check out our website at reclaimedstory.com. All of those links and more will be in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this inspirational podcast, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Not only will you be the first one to know when new content comes out, but it is also a huge help in helping us reach more people to live the reclaimed life.